Lab number 238. In this lab we continue development of our Canteen Point of Sales application, and right now it's time to prepare our order. So when we are clicking on the items button, on the menu buttons with the food items, we will need to actually add those to the order and have some kind of list what's in the order. And then when we will do that, we will also do a push of this app, of this project to Bluemix server that was prepared in lab 6.1. So in case you did not complete lab 6.1, please do, because this is the prerequisite for this one. So let's start. Let's open our text editor. We're still using Atom for this lab series. And let's start with modifying index.html file. So actually we need two things. First is some kind of raw, because we will need to split the screens to two parts, and one should be bigger with menu items, second one should be smaller with an order. And for that we will take one of the grid system examples using rows and calls on the Ionic framework documentation. And second thing, we need a list. We need a list for an order, and again we will take the example from Ionic framework documentation. So for that, let's open the browser and navigate to Ionic framework docs. You can do it from fast launch bar. So right now we're interested in CSS, and first of all in grid. So grid looks like this. We have a div class, main class raw, and then a class inside call, and we also can specify the size like call 50 and so on. We will be using this call 67 on one of the top rows. So let's just copy this text and pass it inside our text editor. So this one will be 67. Instead of this text, we will put inside actually our code for food items, just like that. And here in the second call there will be actually our order list. So let's go back and check for list options. So we have simple lists and we have lists with buttons. So we'll prepare some combination of those. So let's copy this code. And pass it inside. So we don't need the text here. Our button will be just an icon, something like iOS close. There should be a closing icon. Icon will be from left side, not from the right side. And instead of positive, let's make it red. So assertive. And we can also put a class button clear for it to be without a border. So this list with order will be actually repeatable. So we will need to have an array and repeat the items in that array here to show them on the list. So let's call it something like O for a specific item in array, and the array will be called simple order, just like that. And then actually our list item will have something like order item and detail, meaning the name of the item. And we also need to display a price for the item. For that, let's go back to documentation and copy one of the spam examples. So this span will be used, but not as the page probably. Yeah, let's take this item node, it looks cool, and display the price there. Just like that. And instead of REMI, it will be almost the same construction, but instead of detail we'll have here price. So when we will click on this button, we will need to remove the item from the list. So let's assign some kind of function to that. Let's call it something like delete item. And basically we'll need to pass the current index to it. And of course we need to assign some action on the button with the menu item. So when we click in on that, we should actually add the item to the list. So let's call it add item. And we will pass inside the piece as an input parameter. We will also need to calculate the total amount in our order. So for that, let's actually, inside the same call but outside the list, create some kind of bar. Let's have it as a button bar. So let's check buttons, button bar, and copy the code from here. It suits us perfectly. So there will be a button bar to clear an order and to check out, and there will be also just a simple text with a calculation, something like, let's put it in another div. So something like total, and we will need to get an amount. So let's create a function called getSum, and actually what it will do, it will calculate the amount, and we will display it here for all the items in our order. And within this button bar we will need only two buttons, as I said, clear and checkout. So let's have it here, clear, checkout. Let's add a bit of styling, something like the same button outline, to have it on a border but without a filling, or with a kind of color like blue or something. And let's make a different color. So for clear it will be red one, and button assertive should be the case, and for checkout there should be something like green. So let's use button balanced, and checkout with a big letter. And actually actions. So here when we will click on clear button, we should actually call a function something like, sorry for this, something like clear order. And for checkout, something like checkout order. Just like this. We can save this index.html and add some logic in our controllers. So first of all, let's initialize an order. It will be just empty from the beginning, of course. And then we will need to define a few functions like add item, that we passed the piece as input parameter, so let's call it this way. Let's go with item, it's easier. Next thing that we'll need to do is to create a function called getSum to calculate the total amount. So we don't pass any input parameters here. We also need delete item function. So here we pass the index as an input parameter, so let's keep it that way. And last two is actually a clear order and checkout. So for that, I will just copy and pass the functions that we just created and rename them. Clear order and checkout order, I guess. Checkout order. So let's start doing those functions. Let's start developing them. So when we click in on add item, we should actually push the item to our order. So for that we need to define it first of all. So let's call it something like food item, and let's have it the ID, so we will know which item is it, and we will able to delete it afterwards with index. So for that we will need an ID, something like items, let's call it count, and basically we should initialize it also scope items count will start with 1. So here we also will have the ID with a current number, and then the item itself, just like this. And next thing we will need to actually the push. So for that we will use the push action with this food item that we just defined. And then we need to make a change with the calculation with this items count that we just defined, and this will be modified by calculating the current order length, and we will assign the new item count. For example, if there will be 2 items in an order, it will be equal to 2. If there will be more, then it will be equal to that number, something like this. And let's actually modify delete item right away because it's really easy. So we will use almost the same thing, but instead of push we will be doing splice, and we need to pass this index and say that we will remove only 1 item. So delete is completed. Now the clear order, again very easy one. So we just need to again clear the order array just like this. And for checkout, let's do some kind of alert, something like I don't know, the order total, for example. With amount, we will use the same get function, get sum, sorry, to actually calculate the amount of money that we just received. Yeah, so something like this. And only get sum is missing, and actually we need to do that. So here we will do a small cycle, so we need I and sum. Both will be 0 from the start. And the cycle will look like this. So until I will be less than order length. So we'll add one to a variable of this item, and actually we'll make a calculation of the sum. So our price can be not only rounded like $2 or $4, it can be a bit more. So for example, when the price will be $2.50, we need to actually parse the integer and make it round. It will be easier for us. So let's do the following: scope, order, then specific order item that we are working now, and of course its price, and basically we'll use 10 as the parsing. And because our cycle will be repeatable and sum needs to be added one-to-one, so we will use plus equal. This will mean that each time it won't be calculated from scratch, but it will be adding to the previous amount the values. And we should add dot plus comma here. That's basically it with our get sum and add, delete, clear order, and checkout. So we can test how it works. But this time we won't be using our local server that we have with the command line interface. We will be using a server on the Bluemix that you set up in lab 6.1. So for that, let's open the browser and go to Bluemix. You should log in with your credentials. And you should see your container running with the specific IP address. So what we're interested in is actually this IP address. So I will copy it. You should use your own, of course, not mine. And the port that we are looking for is 9080, and then worklight console. So the username and the password is default one, admin, and we should be able to get inside. You can see that there are some applications pre-installed for us, some adapters. We can actually install our adapter right here by clicking Add New App or Adapter, navigating to canteenPOS adapters, of course canteenPOS WL adapters, Canteen adapter, and basically here is our adapter button. In order to install it, we need to go just level back to bin folder and select Canteen adapter.adapter. And click open. So now, as you can see, our adapter deployed on this server, and we should be able to call it from here. Actually, the same way we can do with an app, so the application can be deployed right the same way, but it will be easier to configure deploy from a command line, because I suppose we will do a lot of changes to this app in the future, styling and so on, and each time manually deploying the app won't be a perfect solution. So for that, let's go back to our editor, and using the term package, open the terminal in bottom panel. So here with the newest release with MobileFirst Platform 7.1, we have several commands to operate with the server. And one of them is actually mfp server info that will get us a list of servers. So right now you can see that we have only the local server, which is default for us. But we can do mfp server add to add a new server here. Let's name it Bluemix. The URL of the server is actually what we have here in the browser. So let's just copy everything including port but without the context root and pass it here. So we should use the HTTP and of course the server URL with the port here as the fully qualified URL. Then the login and the username, it will be admin. Yes, we will save the password for this server. Contact root for administration services default one, and here we can type yes and specify that this server will be default for next projects, but we won't do that because in other lab series and even in this one we will still need the local server, and it's much easier to operate with it as the default one. So we'll select no here. So our server was created. Now we can actually push our app to this server. The command will look like this: mfp push, then the name of the server, we named it Bluemix, and then the context root, in our case it's MobileFirst starter. We need to specify it because it differs from the default one specified for this app. So just like that. Now our app will be deployed to this Bluemix server instance, and we should be able to see it. Okay, so let's go to the browser, and yeah, I got the timeout, and check that our app is here. Yes, so we see our canteenPOS here. And we can also try to run this app on a real emulator. I mean, not in a browser simulator or something like that, because Bluemix evaluation image is actually like a production image. I mean, the server that is installed there shouldn't have the preview of a browser and so on. So you should test it with the real apps like in production environment with the real device. So what we will do here, we will create a new Android device instance, virtual device. We'll open terminal for that and simply run Android avd to launch the virtual device manager. And here you see that we have Nexus 5 instance, and we'll create one more. So device in our case will be just 10.1 inch tablet. Let's name it something like Nexus 10. Target will be Google APIs. There will be no skin, we don't need it. The RAM will be 668 megabytes and HIP 64. And we also need to specify that SD card will be 200. We also need to put a check mark on use host GPU. It will make our image much more speedy, and click OK. So here we go, our image was created, and we can click on it and click Start. Let's scale it so it will be more equal to our screen, it will be better. So I will set monitor DPI to 120. It should be okay. So here we go, our emulator starting up. It will take some time, of course. In the meanwhile, we can actually close the virtual device manager. It doesn't need it anymore. And we can do a force exit. Sometimes it's laggy. And wait until our image started up. So it started. Let's go back to our text editor, and what I actually want you to do now is to check your canteenPOS project for these two files, config.xml and config.xml with uppercase. If you have both of them, then you need to do what I will do now. If you have just one, so nothing is needed. So in my case, I have both of them, so what I need to do is to copy everything I have in uppercase config.xml and open the small lowercase config.xml and replace everything that is here with what I just copied from the previous one and save it. That's it. Now we can actually go back to our terminal and run the application using mfp Cordova run -p, that means platform Android, on that device emulator that we just started. So as you can see, it will use our Bluemix server with this MobileFirst starter runtime, and if everything will be successful, then our app will be able to connect to this server. So let's wait until it will start. So it's finally starting. It may take a while. mainly because of emulated 3G connection in emulator, so that should be changed, and we will do it next time for it to be faster. So as you can see, the app is actually opened. We see the first issue that the total amount is not shown. It should be 0 from the start. It was a while, but finally we load the list. So let's go to the browser and open Inspect Devices tabs from More Tools to actually see and verify that server connectivity was perfect. So yeah, everything looks good. So basically, now we can test the logic. When we click on specific item, it's adding to the list. And when we're clicking on minus, it's actually removing from the list. Clear should empty the list. And basically checkout should give us an alert. Yeah, but something wrong with the total amount, that get sum with the function that we wrote. So let's take a look on it in our source code. Okay, yeah, definitely we forgot to do a return. So I will do the following. I will specify that return will return actually a sum. Save this, and instead of doing Cordova run again, I will just push it to Bluemix server. So this will mean that I will actually deploy the latest build to the server. And what I want to show you is a direct update technology that will allow me to update my application without reinstalling it. So it will work the following way. Either next time I will try to connect to a server, or actually if I will exit the app and launch it again. It really depends on the settings. We can have direct update per request, we can have it per session, and so on. So when I'm starting actually the canteenPOS and when I'm trying to connect to a server, it will check whether there is any updates on the server side. And yep, as you can see, it shows us that there is an update available, which is 3 kilobytes in size. When you click update, it will download the latest changes and actually relaunch these web resources. And immediately you can see that we have total amount of $0. So this means that what I just typed in the controller JS actually worked. So let's try to add a few items and click checkout. Yeah, and now as you can see, it actually calculates and do it correctly the total amount of our order. So basically on this step, we finished with our lab. We don't need for our lab anything else now, and we'll continue development of this Canteen Point of Sales terminal in next labs. Thank you.